philosophical underpinning that Ramin left with us, with moral high grounds and the fact that elections and politics ought not to be secretive, ought not to be hierarchical, and we have to figure out a way to for it to be more participative beyond us just going in and giving votes. Even if not giving votes is a way to participate, we participate in that way because we do not believe in any of the candidates. Nota is one aspect of Indian politics, and we could possibly talk about that as a mode of rebellion as well. But other than that, of course, participating on an everyday basis with your thoughts and actions and your work on an everyday level would change things more necessarily than going in and voting and then coming back and feeling apathetic towards the system constantly for the next 5 years when you have to again talk about politics and political parties. So this apathy has to be broken. And that is, I think, what the message that Ramin left us with is, and what Gandhi would possibly ask us to do as well. Experiment a little more, tinker with the system a little more, change things about a little more, be a little bolder, both morally, like inside of yourself, and also when it comes to, like this event is a great part of that as well, because I was just told off for using our chancellor's name in an email talking about venue change. But I don't think that is something that I should be ashamed of. And therefore I own that as a part of my everyday struggle. When I go into class, I own that. Talk when I talk to them about justice, I talk to them about not just the law as it is, but how it ought to be, and whether what we constantly think of as law is actually law. So with all of that background, let's move on to a more political idealization of or reporting of what current elections are and what Gandhi would think about them possibly. And let's have Pradyumna talk to us about that. Pradyumna is one of the most well-read people in my age group, in my opinion. And therefore, using his mind in that sense would be a great opportunity. So let's hear him out and let's poke his brain for all the knowledge that he's amassed by reading a ton of stuff. All right.
Thank you for the wonderful flattery. I don't think I'm loud enough. I won't require a microphone. So we're talking about Gandhi in and on elections, and a little bit more pragmatic and not that much as philosophical as Ramin decided to do it. But I'll end on a philosophical note by again quoting something from the essay of Enlightenment in 1784, where the Kant was asked, what is enlightenment? Okay, so the first thing is that according to Gandhi, what did Gandhi say that what should voters do, right? Or what are the responsibilities of the voter? If someone asks these questions to Gandhi point blank, right? Fortunately, we have an answer to this question because this question was posed to Gandhi in 1920, right? Which he responded by writing a piece in Navjivan on 16th of May 1920, right? And there's an interesting story that that particular piece never got translated into the sister magazines which were published with Navjivan. So Navjivan was strictly published in Hindi, whereas the other ones were, there was a National Herald at that time, right, which came later, but at the same time there was another journal or a magazine which was published in Urdu, which was called Qaumi Awaz, right? So this one doesn't feature in Qaumi Awaz, right? So interestingly, it is just in Hindi, which is very problematic because if you see, Gandhi never, bought this idea of, learning Hindi or Urdu as one language. He always treated them as one, considered them as Hindustani. There's an interesting story how Gandhi ended up learning the script in the very first place. He didn't learn when he was in his school because he learned to write, how do you write in Devanagari and also in his native Gujarati, right? Gandhi didn't even read Gita when I was in India. He went to England and then he read the very first time Gita, and that too in English. Okay, so Gandhi has an interesting association with how he functions with language. So yeah, coming back to the usage, does everyone understand Hindustani here? Is anyone who will not understand? Right? Okay, fine. But I'll be only using it here and there. Right? I can't just help it. Okay. Now, according to Gandhi, Gandhi addresses the problem in three parts. Right? The first part, Gandhi says that the voters in India are not wise, even if it is a limited franchise. He says that voters in India are dull, they are unwise, right? And the question is put right to Gandhi, then why do you think they are unwise? There may be two reasons for that. So he gave two reasons. Number one, that the reason is the personal affiliation with the candidate, right? And what is he talking about personal affiliation? He's saying that a candidate, right, whosoever is contesting the election and the voter have some sort of personal affiliation. So they either vote on the caste lines, right, or they vote on communal rights, right? So he has a problem with this, that this is a very wrong standard for voting in an election. See, we are talking about here assembly elections or the legislative council election, right? So if you read the constitutional history of India, right, which doesn't start from 9th of December 1949 with establishing of the Constituent Assembly, but it begins before that, much before, where you have the Council Act of 1861, then of 91, and then you have reforms in 1919, right? And then in 1935, the major ones, right? Which is the prototype of the constitution as you have, and the word federal is mentioned there, right? So, what is Gandhi saying? That the reason is personal affiliation with the candidate, that's a strictly no-no. And another is that Gandhi says that when a voter is going to vote to a particular candidate, a voter should differentiate between which political party the candidate comes from and what the political and what the candidate is speaking about the issues in question. Okay, so as Ramin already pointed out, Gandhi was against party politics, right? But he was not against voting per se, right? So he said it's good that you vote, right? He although advocated universal adult franchise, we'll come to that, but even within limited franchise, where people were supposed to be literate, educated, right, they were not considered as wise because they're voting according to their personal lines. And another is that we are voting according to the party in question rather than voting to the candidate. Now it's, it doesn't take a genius mind to equate what's going on in the present day, right? A lot of scholars, a lot of think tanks come up with these sort of solutions, right? They say that you don't vote for the party, ultimately you have to vote for your MP or MLA if it's your state election, right? And then ultimately, the parliamentary board will decide who becomes the prime minister, right? Or which party has in power. So Gandhi is just appealing that forget about political parties, just vote for your candidate, okay? And let me quote Gandhi from the same piece, right? And I quote, I suggest that voters should not identify themselves with any party or its quarrels. They should consider candidates' views and not their party's view. Their character should weigh more than their views. Very important. Their character should weigh more than their views. A man of character will make himself worthy of any position he is given. Even his mistakes will not much matter. I consider it impossible for a man without character to do a higher national service, so that is, I were a voter from among the list. Now see here, Gandhi is putting himself, saying if I was the voter among the list, would first select the men of character and then I would understand their views. So Gandhi goes one step far ahead. He's not even ready to listen to what their political ideologies are, right? What are they trying to say? He'll say, first I look, the person is man of character or not, doesn't matter which political party he comes from, and then he'll say that I'll listen to his views. And even if he commits some mistakes, right, we can deal with that later. But what we need is men of character, right? So that's the first bit. Now let's contrast this, what's happening in our present day politics, right? And let's take some names. For example, Atishi Marlena. You heard of this person, politician, right? Supposed to be contesting from North Delhi constituency, right? And she said something while her campaigning trail. This was a very problematic statement. And we'll evaluate this from Gandhian lens, that whether this holds good or not, right? So someone asked that, Atishi, that what do you do? And it's on media, it went viral, right? Mostly from the BJP handles. That she was asked that what do you do in Uttar Pradesh, because there are not any good candidates, right? There's Gathbandhan of BSP and SP, right? And the candidates, all of them are goons. That's the words that have been used, right? So Atishi Marlena, and last name is supposed to be Kaur Singh or something. Marlena is a short for Marx and Lenin. Okay, So that's how the Malina comes. Okay, the parents being both communist professors. Okay, right, but she isn't that much. Yeah, so Atishi responded that you shouldn't bother about the character of the candidate. See, quite diametrically opposite what Gandhi suggests, right? You should not look at the character, but what you should look there is what political party they are from and what is their agenda. Their agenda is to defeat BJP. And they said that the agenda of Aam Aadmi Party is also to defeat BJP. So if you are a voter in UP, according to Artishi Malina, who's fabulous work, she's a social worker, as a DLED from Oxford, worked a lot in education sector. So she suggests that you should vote for BJP SP so that BJP is defeated, right? So even the people who take moral high grounds, right, are followable in terms of the Gandhian lens, how Gandhi would have presumed, right, that how democracy ought to, or electoral democracy would function, right? I'm not going into the philosophy of what is Gandhian politics or what is, according to Gandhi, would be a democratic politics. I think Sachin and Rao, if they would be here, they would have, demonstrated that very beautifully, right? But I think I'll stick to the very pragmatic that what do you do, what do a voter do, right, according to Gandhi when he goes into the field. Now, what is Gandhian electorate? So we have established that first thing is that the Gandhian voter is not a wise one. The historical Gandhian voter, the limited franchise one, is not a wise voter, right? So according to Gandhi, there are three things which are important for a voter, right? A voter should be independent, right? What do you mean by independent? That means both the sort of biases that we are talking about, the personal one and the association with the political party, should not matter, right? It's a very independent decision, right? Another one, it should be an impartial one, right? There shouldn't be any consideration, right, of partiality towards one or the another, even if the person is from your political party, is standing in your constituency, should not bother, right? And the third one is addressed to that point where it's saying that the voter is not a wise one. An Indian voter ought to be an intelligent voter, right? And now let's consider what Gandhi means by saying a voter should be an intelligent voter. What is the intelligentsia has to do while voting, and how do you exercise that intelligentsia? Now it's important. Let's see how Gandhian electorate is all about three I's, independence, impartial, intelligence. So, Modi is not the only one who's going to frame in the matters of 2P and 3Zs and 5Ps, all the policies, they come in such kind of a reason. Sometimes I wonder that it's an organic chemistry or something else, right? But yeah, so what constitutes impartiality? For Gandhi, the impartiality is the process, right? An electorate process or a democratic election process should be impartial, right? Whereas when he says that independence, it doesn't mean here the process. He only is talking about that independence in substance, that is the actual casting of the vote should be independent of everything else, and the only thing that you need to focus is the character of the person and then the views. So character takes precedence. It may be problematic to you, right, but that's how it looks to Gandhi, right? We can debate over this during the Q&A. Okay. Now, to recall the wise voter. Now, what is an intelligent voter by Gandhi, right? So the first, he suggests two alternatives, right? His first suggestion is, he suggests abstention, don't vote, okay? Don't go and vote. That's his saying that, you better not be part of that process. But then he justifies it, in a sense, he issues some sort of a clarification to that why we shouldn't vote. So I'll quote Gandhi again. It is an established custom with regard to elections that electors, if they do not find any candidate to their liking, need not register their votes. In such a case, abstention amounts to exercise of one's vote. Alright? That's a sort of an old position that where you didn't have a nota, which Shama rightly mentioned, right? That if Gandhi was here, he would have addressed nota and said that exercised nota and would have perhaps campaigned for nota. Right? Yeah. Do we see any campaigns for nota except for few votings that I've seen here for your council elections? Right? I was very surprised, super impressed by that. Okay. Right. So he would have campaigned for it. Now, if you build on the basis of the words on this quotation, right? While adopting the nota, he's creating an exception in this rule, and that's why we can say that Gandhi was for the nota, right? And I'll quote him again. I'm sorry, I'll be quoting him again and again so that you know that these words are Gandhi's words are not cooked up, right? Okay? Right. A lot of people say a lot of things about Gandhi, right? But not from the sources sometimes, right? So I'm bringing up a lot of quotations. Right. Exception was taken, quote start, exception was taken to this procedure that if good electors refuse to make their choice, bad electors would make a worse choice, right? That's what Ravin was talking about, is that a competition between the bad versus the worst. Gandhi is saying, yes, it is that kind of a competition, right? But we don't want the worst electors, then what do we do, right? His previous solution is, don't go and vote, but he's carving an exception to that. Okay, but suppose in a certain place all candidates bring drunkards, as we can substitute with the word goons in Atishi's statement, right? The better portion of the electorate abstain from voting and the candidates manage to secure votes from their own kind, right? Therefore, let's suppose all the good people abstain from the voting because you think that the candidate is a goon according to Gandhi, then Gandhi is saying that this will result in a different problem. So their own kind, that means goon electing goons. Right? Because the good people have abstained from the process. So he's saying that is problematic as well. So he's realizing that the abstention is not going to cut out. Right? Now, again, continuing from that, can they exercise any influence on the council? No doubt their vote has a numerical value, but their views and speeches cannot influence the council. Right? Now what is Gandhi is hinting towards, because Gandhi didn't have that idea or a system of nota formulated, perhaps an analytical mind would have reached or would have proposed this to Gandhi. Gandhi would have been very happy following this principle. He would have massively campaigned against the nota rather than saying that you need to strike this balance between voting and then boycotting at the same time. And what do you do? Right? So that's the thing. Now, Gandhi says that, okay, first you have to remain absent. Then if you remain absent, there are problems if you remain absent, right? So what is so intelligent about this, right? It's not an intelligent move, right? Because it's the same thing. The voter within the limited franchise, which is voting in the council elections, at least from 1909 onwards, right? So the various council elections, municipal council elections, right? Or later on after 1935 to the provincial legislative councils, or the elections which go on within, let's suppose, a princely state where they already have, the sort of not a sovereign but a suzerain, right? And within them there are elections for the members of the secretariat, right? Or the other members of the judiciary. See, separation of power has always been there, right? Post Westphalia, Indians have adopted it very carefully. Right? So if you have a princely state somewhere in Gujarat and Rajasthan, they already have all three departments, right? One would be called Mahkamah Khas, right? Would be the secretariat. Mahkamah Aam, that would be the Common People's Council, and Mahkamah Kachari would be the, the judicial wing. So, these democratic processes, the ideas of election is very much present, right? And you need to work through this within the framework of limited franchise. And how you're going to do that is by intelligentsia, right? And how do you apply your intelligent brain to it while absenting from it? So that's how we established that, Gandhi is for nota, okay? Right. Now, in the case of Atishi, right, if she was Gandhian or she would have read what Gandhi has said, perhaps she would have campaigned for Aam Aadmi Party from her own constituency. And if our sole objective is to defeat BJP, right, or to get a clean image politics, that's what the party slogan from Aam Aadmi Party was, they would have said that, okay, if you are a Uttar Pradesh voter, right, we know that our alliances will fall, right, but as an enlightened voter, right, and I'm stressing on this word enlightenment, we'll end with that. So as an enlightened voter, what you need to do is that, okay, I'll vote for, I'll campaign for nota in UP, right? But whereas in Delhi, I'll campaign for myself. Why? Because they're the men of not character. They are goons, if not drunkards. I mean, in Gandhi's word, that's what he wanted to say. Okay? Right. Now what Gandhi says about his actual word about intelligence and what effect it will bring. This abstention, the intelligent absentia of Gandhi, what is it bringing in front of us? Quote, Moreover, an intelligent abstention has its own effect. The electors, having once failed to find a proper candidate, will next time take proper steps to find out a suitable man and elect him. Pretty much sounds familiar as what happens is an effect of nota, right? And by doing so, they will raise the level of their own place. In a growing nation, people are expected to purify the political atmosphere they live in and to maintain its purity. All enlightened and thoughtful voters will find that occasionally situation must arise when they will have to purposefully refuse to register their votes. I earnestly hope that on such occasions, right, our electors will have the courage to do so, and I hope that when they do exercise the vote, they will give it to the best man, no matter to which party he belongs, right? So he's categorically saying that yes, nota is a legitimate thing. You don't have to. So what's an intelligentsia or a wise voter? According to Gandhi, first, right, a wise voter is not supposed to vote according to the caste line or communal line. Second, should be an intelligent voter, should know when to exercise the right to vote and when not to. Okay? And the third one should not be associated to, a voter should not associate itself from a political party, right? Political party is for the people who are fighting the elections, right? For the maintaining of the house, a particular order, for running a political system. That political structure isn't useful for the citizens, okay? Right? Now, Gandhi has also a problem with this limited franchise. You say that, the question can be put to Gandhi is say that, okay, limited franchise is a problem, and even within the limited franchise, where it's presumed that people are educated, right, or they have at least some standing in the society, okay, right? Even within the limited franchise, if the people are not voting wisely, what will happen if there is a universal adult franchise, okay? Now, Gandhi is very much in favor, right, of universal adult franchise, and we have an example of this, okay? Every one of you know about what happened at the Pune Pact, right? Now it's a good example where Gandhi practiced this, right? And how he practiced that, Ambedkar said that no, we want separate electorates, right, for community lines, right? Whereas Gandhi said that no, this is not done, right? Because we want everyone to participate and vote in a democratic process. Whether that process is democratic or not, Gandhi has a different philosophical notion about democracy, about Western tradition, etc., etc. But at the same time, and it's also not paradoxical when we say so, because if Gandhi is in a particular system, he always try to even first modify and rectify the system. He started doing that in South Africa, right? And it all started with resignation to vote, right? For the local council elections, and float a parallel assembly where they are supposed to vote, okay, right? So he is okay with an electoral process, right? Whether exercising a vote or participating in an electoral process, right, warrants that the system or the structure is democratic, Gandhi would perhaps say no, okay, right? But he doesn't disqualify the need for the electoral process and the need to vote, okay, right? Now, while he is against the separate electorates and he is arguing for the universal adult franchise, but he's saying that within the universal adult franchise, the voting system shouldn't be of plural in nature. You understand what's a plural voting? Where a member can vote to 2 people or 3 people, or perhaps can give a preference, in order that, cast vote number 1, 2, 3, and then the point system, and then it's evaluated. Now, Gandhi is very strict. Now, he is following a completely utilitarian model where he says that no, there should be one man, one vote. Okay, right? And he raised this objection, right, when the Congress party was in tussle, right, in the mid-20s and later on in the 30s as well. And what is the tussle within the Congress party? Yeah, 2 important camps. One is the moderates, right, and the other ones are the extremists or the radicals, people like to call them, right? And while trying to negotiate these, we never know actually where Gandhi actually stood in this entire debate. Okay? But while addressing this debate, he says that while addressing a particular procedural hearing, right, within the working committee of the Congress, he says, and I quote, "A question has cropped up whether the Congress constitution allows of plural voting. In my opinion, the new constitution is based on the principle of one man, one vote. We have avoided property qualification. That means, people registered to vote wherever they have their properties, but depending upon which Congress committee they are members from. Okay? And it seems to me that one person cannot have his name registered on more than one register. Right? So it's very pro universal adult franchise, one man, one vote, right? All the principles of liberal democracy has been enshrined, right, within the Gandhian thought. Okay? But that only limits to a very small and a very narrow activity, and that activity is of just participating in electoral process. Now, it doesn't mean that this electoral process is related to a national election. It can be what Ramin was mentioning, the res publica, right? The village republic. It is a republic. That means the people may come together. Vote doesn't mean to cast your vote. It can also be the show of hands, right? Within the small communities, in whichever ways, whether you're voting, from higher hierarchies to the down, or you're taking it from bottom to up, right? It's not talking about the presence of democracy at various levels or hierarchy. It's just merely saying that whichever level you are, if you are a voter, right, you better be an intelligent one. Okay? Right? And apart from that, there should be a universal adult franchise. But if there is a universal adult franchise, if they don't have sort of the capacity of wisdom, it will take time. It will happen over the time. Okay? But you cannot deny anyone this fundamental process of voting. And Gandhi attracts this idea of voting or choosing or selecting or rejecting as a natural process, rather than is deriving these ideas from a Western political tradition. His derivations of these kinds come from sort of village republics, the ideas or the philosophy of Jainism. In the 5th century AD in Chota Nagpur or upper part of Bihar at that time. Right? So the idea his borrowing is from Jainism, the idea of small republics or republic kingdoms. Okay, so it's not deriving. If someone asks Gandhi that, what do you think about the Western political or cultural tradition, Gandhi would have a very quick response to that, and it would be an amazing idea. He just dislodges industrial revolution. He just says Western political tradition is nothing. It can be a good idea. I mean, they may think that they are doing something, but in my opinion, they aren't. Okay, so that's what Gandhi thinks. Now, let's situate Gandhi, right, within a party political figure, because see, Gandhi, right, was part of the Congress party, right, till October 1934, and after October 1934, Gandhi resigned from the Congress and he remained as an advisor to the Congress party. But let's map the political story of Gandhi being a part of the party political process. See, it's the Gandhi who is saying in the very first instance that won't vote for a particular party. But let's see how Gandhi behaves when he is a subject, right, of a party political process, right? And what sort of elections Gandhi may be fighting for or standing or voting for, right? Elections for the president of the All India Congress Committee, right? Yeah, Gandhi must have, he became chairman so many times, it cannot be without a vote, right? So how Gandhi behaves when he himself is this, the subject of the politics. Now there's an interesting story that how it becomes the subject, right? And we'll take a little deviation and add a little story to this, right? So that we see that how he resigned. He resigns principally on the basis of, right? First we talk about the resignation, and then we'll talk about how is it situated there in this politics, right? The Act of 1935, that is the Government of India Act 1935, had extraordinary powers for the governors, right? Okay? And what those powers were, that the governors can suspend, right, the elective legislative councils in respective state. Now, Congress had a huge protest after this, and in that regard, right, Gandhi also resigned from his post as the president, and later on also moved, takes a retirement from the Congress party. Right? The question that remains at that very particular point, that in a very interesting interview that he gave to an association of journalists from America, from Washington, which reports, for example, you have PTI, ANI, sort of syndicates who report there. So an American association journalist or press was there, and he asked Gandhi what was their view about what's happening with the movement in against the Act of 1935. And Gandhi has said that, and at that time, the Secretary of the State in England, Lord Zetland, actually said that whatever Gandhi is saying is rubbish, right? Perhaps he would have said it in his Yorkshire accent, saying rubbish. But he said that, the Gandhi has not read the Act of 1935, because as the law's application is, right, that the governors have the power and they'll always have the power because the parliament is framing this law. Okay? Right? And so Gandhi suggests that I have a way out. So Gandhi suggests an electoral way out. Right? And what's the Gandhian way? Gandhian way is not saying at that time that let's have sort of an election, or rather than let's have a provincial Indian election and that can change it. He said the way is that the Viceroy said that Viceroy should clarify that this is not the case, right? That none of the provincial legislature will be boycotted based on what the political leanings are. Now let's compare this to what happened in present day, like when the state emergency or sort of the precedent rules been established. There's an interesting thing. That very particular provisions against which Congress fought very hard, and ultimately Congress was able to get that provision amended in 1942 from the British Parliament. When the Constituent Assembly was framed, this Congress party, when they enacted India's constitution, they brought in the same provisions of the governor's power, right? And it's very well noted. The student of law, you should read Sarkaria Commission report. Heard of this report? Right? It's an interesting observation there, that what are we doing? Are we bringing the same old Draconian law? So Gandhi says that no, this is not done. This powers of governor, right? And governor is not an elected one, right? And he's emphasizing that we vote for the council members, right? There's that faith in majoritarian electoral process. Whereas he's not neglecting the minority, but that very particular vote, the faith in the process. And I'll quote very quickly, and I'll conclude in 1 minute after that. And I quote, "Let a judicial tribunal of joint creation give the interpretation and not the viceroy." Okay? "It will be time for them to plead incompetence when the tribunal finds in favor of the interpretation. Till then, the Congress, for assurances, must be held valid. I must repeat that the latest gesture is one of the sword, not of goodwill, certainly not of democratic obedience." Listen to this very carefully. Gandhi says, certainly not of democratic obedience to the will of a democratic majority, right? So Gandhi is saying that minority is not irrelevant, right? And you always say that minority is irrelevant whenever Gandhi is in minority in a party political process. So you can see this sort of a double face of minority. For example, I'll give you an example where Gandhi says that depending upon the domicile of the people, everyone, the Congress committee decides that everyone is supposed to spin a particular length of yarn, okay, right? And then the Congress entire party says, this is excessive, and we need to change the preamble of the Congress party regarding that. And Gandhi finds himself in the minority. And then he says that you guys having the tyranny of majority by being elected and the votes were casted to you and no one listens to me, blah, blah, blah. Right? So you see this, how he operates when he wants to be part of electoral majority, right? There's this kind of a different bravado, and then you have his part of that minority and he completely behaves differently, right? And then whenever he says that he's part of the minority, he'll say, no, I don't do anything. I just give moral advice, not the political ones. Okay? So that's an interesting way how we track and understand Gandhi's way, because Gandhi's way is not political as he said, but although he tries to call them as political, not moral, and we try to construct Gandhian way as political, but for Gandhi there's only one way, and that way is of satyagraha, ahimsa, truth, right? God is truth and truth is God. So he always experimenting his truth and laying down his truth. Everyone says else truth, he respects that, but do your experiments first and then tell what the truth is. Okay? So he's open to that, right? But he's not open to sort of electoral majority ganging against him, right? But if his truth is validated by a voting process, an electoral process, he's happy. Okay? Fine. Now, this very last bit, and then I'll conclude, okay, is what does Gandhi think about women's voting rights? And it's very important. This is a question which generally isn't asked, right? It's always about the men, politics by men, right? And Gandhi is very interesting and a very, very powerful take. And this is one of the last quotations I'm using, and then we'll conclude. Okay? Whether or not men do their duty, why should the women not have their rights? Women must have voting rights by all means, but what will women who do not understand what rights are, or if they understand them, do not have the strength to secure them, do with the voting rights? Let them have these rights. Okay? Now, see, here is saying that there may be women who are not intelligent voters, who can't exercise their presence or absence in electoral politics. Okay? There is no harm in that. Let them become the members of legislatures in India. But the foremost duty of women is to save themselves from the intentional or unintentional tyranny of men and makes India glorious and strong. So women has a battle twofold. First, they have to be part of a legislative process, and whereas while doing so, they are not fighting for their just a civil or political right to vote. But in that process, what they are doing so, they are fighting the strong tyranny of men under whose shadow they are always said to live. Okay? Right? It is only when an ignorant woman is ready to sacrifice her equality to ignorant daughter to the fire of a recent widower's lust that the man whose tears of grief on the loss of his wife have not yet dried can think of remarrying. Okay? For my part, I believe that it's the women's right, nay, it is a duty they owe to themselves. It's not a duty to the political system, right? The women's right to vote is a duty to each and every individual woman to themselves, and then against fighting the tyranny of the men. Continue and I'll repeat. For my part, I believe that it is women's right, it is a duty they owe to themselves, to their menfolk, and to India to bring about reforms of this kind. Right? So, Gandhi in his perspectives, first the intelligent voter, then the kind of campaigning, then the kind of candidates that needs to be, constructed is a very complicated one. But his simple solutions are very easy. That you look for the candidate, right? Judge the candidate on the basis of what sort of merit the candidate possesses, do away with party politics, right? And let's see then what happens. He doesn't want even to listen to the political candidate by saying that, I don't care if the man is of good character, you can have a completely different ideology which doesn't suit us. But if his character is intact, he'll not do any harm or any sort of a national harm, right? So, to conclude, I would say, it's not on a pessimistic mode, but sort of a, rewinding few years on the clock, especially when I was in my revolting days as a college student, right? So Gandhi would vote and urge, perhaps campaign for Nota, and also ultimately may have also succeeded, right? Perhaps, right? We don't know if Gandhi speaks from heaven to everyone. Perhaps he would have succeeded with the Nota, right? And you would have a better candidates next time around. Or the so-called Swaraj movement, interestingly it's called Swaraj movement, of Anna Hazare or Kejriwal have a better legacy what they have done today if they have just campaigned for a long time rather than forming a political party. What if, I'm throwing a sort of a what if, I don't have an answer to this question, but what if they would have just followed Gandhi's idea of Swaraj and said that, yeah, we don't want to form a political party, what we'll do is just campaign for Nota, okay, right? So that's all. And before I finish, and as Ramin reminded of Klarung and an essay of enlightenment, and I said, remember, enlightenment is important. And Kant, in the very essay of Klarung, which is the question is what is enlightenment in 1784, replies very interestingly. Kant says that we live in an age of enlightenment, right? Let's not kid ourselves. 1784, right? Later half of 18th century. We live in an era of enlightenment. But are we enlightened or not is a separate question. Okay? So we may live in a post-Gandhian era. Whether our politics is Gandhian or not, or electoral process is Gandhian or not, is a separate question. Okay? Now thank you for being so patient.
Right. So, you know that we promised you snacks at some point. um, I'm not 100% sure that they will actually come through. So I think the talk has been quite exciting and engaging, and what we should continue doing is continue engaging. If we somehow find some food in the process, that's good. But let's try to keep ourselves more engaged in the work that we're trying to accomplish here. This conference does not have to end here. It can result in, as we already know, it's going to culminate in a debate. But what we can do eventually is write blogs and have Students for Peace create a blog of its own, and everybody can contribute to it. We can continue having this debate online for other people to see and access, and it may help the current election process. So let's not be skeptical of our possible roles in the possibilities of bringing change, right? So along with the integrity that we ought to develop within ourselves as we continue as students and faculty members in academia, we ought to believe in the power that we have as animated citizens of the country to bring about that change. And so let's continue working with that. So without further ado, I think we should either start with a question answer session, or we can have the students discuss their papers and speeches first. So given that we're being democratic today, let's vote first. Do we want a question answer session now? If you do, just raise your hands and then we can. Alright, good. So, so I then shall
Intelligent
access my veto.
absentia.
I shall access my veto as the moderator, and then we'll move forward with Mani's speech, and then Avirat, and then we'll have a few questions.
Alright, so I think I'm audible like this. Letting me back to a small audience only that I have. So I would like to bring some insight to this panel about how our leaders are being wrongly portrayed or wrongly quoted by the present politicians. Leaders like Ambedkar, leaders like Gandhi. So in Professor Amin's article in the Hindu, he talks about how this particular election is very important because we are at crossroads for a hope for civic republicanism and practice of demagogic populism. So it's very clear about which side is doing what in this situation. And talking particularly about my paper, in this particular election, the problem of a UCC or the hope for a UCC becomes even more controversial and important. The last we saw this was after the Shahbano case, where the demand for a UCC, or there was a controversy in our country regarding how a UCC is important. Now, the need for a UCC is also present in our constitution by the directive principles by Article 44. However, the BJP proclaims that UCC is a very important part of its manifesto and has been a part of their manifesto ever since a long time, whether it was 1998, 2004, 2009, 2014, and now 2019. The pretext of the manifesto this year is essentially about how Dr. B.R. Ambedkar wanted a UCC. And true, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar had a vision for the BJP, for India, for having a UCC, but not for the reason that the BJP claims it to be. Now, what the BJP claims is that a UCC is important because it will further lead to the cause of gender equality, it will lead to equal respect for all religions, and the father of our constitution wanted a UCC. However, the real motive behind the UCC or the BJP's urge to have a UCC is very different, and it could be easily understood by understanding the origins of the BJP. The origins of the BJP come from RSS. RSS is clearly demonstrates a very Hindu nationalist agenda. They're a right-wing political agenda. So the UCC is nothing else but just another way to impose the culture of the majority over the minority over here, and getting electoral benefits by appeasing the majority community over here. Now when the political parties are quoting Ambedkar in their rallies, they forget about how the real motive of Ambedkar was. Ambedkar was all against a forced UCC, but he did believe that a forced imposition of a uniform personal law and not something which comes from within the society could be problematic. And I quote Ambedkar in his statements given in the Constituent Assembly, where he says that no government can exercise its power in such a manner as to provoke community to rise in rebellion. I think it would be a mad government if it did so. So, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar essentially was a firm believer in the spirit of democracy and dedicated his entire life to bringing about a change in the Hindu society. His thoughts are conveniently misinterpreted by the ruling government over here to further reiterate the election propaganda in this country. So, Ambedkar firstly believed in bringing about a change in the society. He believed that first and primary importance was bringing about a social change in the society and uniformity of amongst all religions. So when the demand for a UCC came, it should come from within the society and not something which is forced upon us, which is very different from a view which is taken by political parties of our times now. Now, the loudest shout for a UCC comes from those conservative and fundamental sections of a society which talk about how we need a UCC, but this is nothing just but a means to attack the minority community without even understanding the connotations which are attached to uniform personal law or a UCC in future. Now, recently the BJP was in forefront in celebrating the 124th birthday of B.R. Ambedkar by portraying him as a nationalist. Now, they failed to take into account how Ambedkar never gave importance to parties like the RSS. He in fact believed how he actually accused RSS of being a party that is so conservative and spending communal harmony, but that is something which is just forgotten. And he's being portrayed as a nationalist leader who wanted a UCC, and that is all being done for a propaganda, for election purpose only. Now, this is very different in our times. Now, for example, if we talk about Mahatma Gandhi right now, he's also being misquoted by our leaders. While on the one hand, the ruling party Modi alleges Rahul Gandhi of being an incapable heir of a Nehru-Gandhi dynasty, on the other hand, he says that the Nehru-Gandhi dynasty is kind of the Mughal dynasty, while he's attaching religious connotations to the political party. He's trying to appease the majority over here because the Mughal dynasty over here is being portrayed as someone who are outside from our country, not something we belong to. So when they are being portrayed as an infiltrator, and he tries to accuse the Nehru Gandhi family for that. So it's nothing but just appeasement of the majority community for electoral benefits. So the average voter who doesn't have much conscience about what this election could turn out to just blindly follows the man. Now, Modi claims that the most anti-Dalit or lower caste rights took place during the Congress reign. That was true. While Rahul Gandhi talks about a very interesting perspective from Gujarat by using the two Gs. He says about there were two ideologies which took birth in Gujarat, one being that of Gandhi, where he was spreading peace, love and harmony, and one being that of Godse, which talked about violence, intolerantism and majoritarianism, and Modi is a believer of the latter ideology. Now while these rallies take into place, Modi fails into account how the worst Muslim riots of 2002 actually took place under his tenure in Gujarat. So when we're trying to portray our leaders in a particular side, we need to understand about how these elections are just being used as a way of just portraying their ideology and incorporating it into the election propaganda when it's actually not true. So when these political leaders try to incorporate their ideology, they're doing nothing more than just defaming the ideology of these leaders without even actually understanding what they meant. Now, if we talk about Gandhi at the end of the day, I think his take up on these elections would be very different, as Sir mentioned or as Professor Anil mentioned. He would definitely not participate in this. And providing my take about what Sir said about our candidate from North Delhi, I do believe that she's having a rather more pragmatic approach towards election and believes in the fact that if we want the majority in party BJP to not come into power, we need to strengthen our opposition. So she's also having the choice between the bad and the worst when she talks about it's better to vote for a Gathbandhan at this stage than having a BJP come into power, because at least when the Gathbandhan gets some votes, they would have certain seats in the parliament of an opposition, because practically we are living in a parliament with no opposition, where the opposition has no real power. So in order to weaken the ruling party which sits over there like a tyrant, we need to have some opposition in power. So that's about it, that's about my paper.
Alright, so just to iterate once the fact that students don't just need to have a central rebellious attitude and have causes to rebel against, and have the gall to stand up to power and say no to injustice, and the duty to come up with their own idea of justice. But there is also this need to have solidarity, right? So one of the things that you really need to do as students is to encourage each other and be here for each other as much as possible. One of these conferences where Vikram came in. Vikram is one of the researchers who researches within transsexual rights and transgender rights, etc. So he came in and he said that Jinda does not have a feminist movement. Why does it not have a feminist movement? Because here, there is nobody you can you can talk about feminist ideology in class. You can talk about these things as philosophically as you want to, and you can bring to your aid in your intellectual endeavor these philosophers who have given up interesting ideas. But how many people do you believe will stand with you when you bring up, say, a sexual harassment complaint against somebody, or bring up a politically important aspect of a female student's life within this university? So don't just be students and have causes in your own individual capacities. Find those like-minded people, gather them together and believe in those ideas. If you believe in what Manit just said, then continue this conversation outside of this classroom. Right? So I want to take this opportunity to say that when people like Manit, I'm really proud of the two students who've come up here and are participating as speakers, are coming up with their ideas and thoughts. Don't just let them die and fizzle away after a certain engagement. Continue that engagement outside. Because if you do, that is how you create a difference, create the change that you need to bring about. Right? So when you have these beliefs should not go untouched and unanswered. Alright, so that is one. Ramin often ends everything in every conference that he does with a little bit of engagement with an artist. And that is because art is a very strong form of rebellion. It is relatable, it emotionally drives people, and along with emotionally driving people and being relatable, it conjures up this need to fight a little more. So in keeping with that and tearing a page out of one of my mentor's books, I will end with Avarat. Avarat is from JSIA, and he's going to present what he believes is the current conceptualization of how Gandhi would have reacted to various current situations and leaders through a monologue, which hopefully we will conceptualize into a play next semester and produce it at a mass level. So, off to the artists.
Thank you. I'd like to come back. That's not an issue. Also, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, we're just checking. Right.
Wait. No, this is for video. Video recording sound.
While you all look at me get mic'd up, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank both sir and ma'am for considering me worthy of being part of such an illustrious panel of extremely learned and qualified law students and law professors. But I tell you to look beyond law, because more than a lawyer, I think Mahatma Gandhi was a thinker, right? When I say that, I'm not implying that Mahatma Gandhi was less of a lawyer, more of a leader, more of a politician. Gandhi was an idea, right? Gandhi was an emotion. Gandhi was a feeling. Yeah. Gandhi is not the person that you want to just look up to. No, you're wrong there. Gandhi was a person you want to be like. I'm kidding. Don't worry. I'm not going to over intellectualize a very simple man, right? He was a very simple man, right? So whatever I said goes null and void, right? Although it sounds beautiful, it's amazing to say, makes for great stories, but it's not true, right? A simple man with a simple mission and vision, right? Somebody who wanted India to be free, right? He also wanted India to be responsible enough to handle its freedom. I'm going to change the tone of, this engagement and ask, how many of you think that India has been a responsible free country? We all know it's a free country, at least. We all assume it's a free country. But be honest, the raise of hands. How many of you think India has been a responsible free country? More responsible than Gandhi? Okay, fair. Perspective, interesting. Anybody else? No? Thank you. Thank God. Why I say thank God is not because I believe in God. I'm just a teenager. Anyways, that's not the point. The point is because when we talk about Gandhi today, right? We hear a lot of people say Mahatma Gandhi. We hear a lot of people say Shriman Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, right? We need to understand that the man was not very fond of the titles himself, which is proven. Okay, of course there may be contradictions and perspectives, and I totally respect that, because I'm not like a political leader right now who might win the election, and I'm really scared about. But that's not the point. That's not the point. Again, there's another reason why I keep saying that's not the point. Because we've got it all wrong, right? Technically, Gandhi never said, right, study me, build museums, build temples. Yeah, there are people who've built temples of Gandhi, and I'm not even kidding. Gandhi never said, study me, put me on your currency bill. Currency note, right? Sorry, I often tend to think of the bills. But again, what we need to understand is that Mahatma Gandhi, through his entire life struggle, through his entire time in South Africa, in India, etc., only and only wanted to ensure that people feel a collective sense of unity. Right? People do not shy away from speaking in Hindi. People do not shy away accepting their cultural, heritage. He was a proud Gujarati. As somebody who's also a Gujarati, I would tell you that it's not a very cool language. I'm being brutally honest. And especially, reading law in England could be taxing. At least some of the faculty members would agree, especially back then. Because reading law in England meant that you were a specific, person, somebody who'd, mend the future, change the world, make a lot of pounds. Apart from that, in that sort of an environment, speak in Gujarati. Not shy away from being Indian. Quite an achievement. Excuse me. More importantly, when we hear or talk about Gandhi, a lot of people say a lot of things. I'd say one man's revolutionary, another man's revolutionary. Because how much ever you critique Gandhi, you can't take away from the fact that he was a revolutionary at the end of the day. Somebody who, actually anybody, right? Anybody today, like for instance, if any one of you want to get up and throw a shoe at me, you're a revolutionary. You're a Gandhi in the making. Right? We need to humanize situations. Right? When we bring into this entire dynamic of somebody great to have walked over this planet, we're not watching Avengers Endgame. Right? Are we? Because clearly, superheroes don't exist. Correct me if you believe that there is a Tony Stark. I don't think so. But I know for a fact that there are people who touch lives and make a difference. confused. Yeah. Supposed to be a performance. Well, I'm also as confused as y'all. Because for a fact that performances are different, right? I'm trying to talk to you. Speech is a performance. Tell me how I'm wrong. Like, I intended on making a very, very dramatical connotation, to this entire realm. But what I thought was how horribly I was wronged on various fronts. I'll be brutally honest. I was supposed to basically, let me tell you what I was supposed to do, okay? I was supposed to come up with so I had this crazy idea upon discussion and deliberation of coming up with an entire, sort of play wherein there is this gentleman who walks in, like me, goofs around with the audience and falls off, pretending to have a cardiac arrest, right? Oh, that's cool. That gets your attention, right? Apart from the yapping that I did initially. Replaced by a political leader called Narendra Modi, who comes up and says, भाइयों और बहनों, मैं आपसे कहना चाहूंगा कि मोहनदास गांधी हमारे उसूलों के साथ चलते थे. Not realizing that, Mahatma Gandhi would not comply with the rules of Narendra Modi, simply not because he's been accused of mass murder, not because he's the king of radical politics in India, at least right-wing politics, but because Narendra Modi didn't exist, right? Or maybe, considering he's a true Hindu, he maybe existed in some other form. Maybe a mosquito. That's the most socialist connotation to this example, because I love this one thing about mosquitoes. Have you noticed? They will feast on your blood, even if you're rich, poor. They don't give a shit. They really don't care, which is beautiful, right? So this was to be replaced by another person called Rahul Gandhi, right? Who goes on saying, हमारे तो नाम में गांधी है. मैं आपको कहना चाहूंगा कि last night when I woke up in the morning, मुझे एहसास हुआ कि इस देश को गांधी जी की जरूरत है. Do you mean money? Because we currently need money. Money, who doesn't need money, right? Interestingly, this was to end with a third paradigm where we have a Munna Bhai, right? Because Munna Bhai is relatable, Munna Bhai is supposed to be apolitical, but I was wrong there. Let me tell you that in fact 2 days ago, when I was planning to compile a little more research on this speech or this performance or whatever you may call it, or me just ranting, which sounds better, more rebellious, was that I saw a video of Sanjay Dutt, right, who was yelling at the top of his voice on a microphone in Mumbai, campaigning for Milind Deora, Mumbai South, Congress president, Congress candidate, more importantly, and son of Murli Deora. Who doesn't know the guy? Okay, I was kidding. Y'all won't, it's chill, don't worry. The point is, Sanjay Dutt said that Munna Bhai bolta hai कि हाथ पे बटन दबाओ. Okay, fair, fine. My issue is when Sanjay Dutt, or the character who represents Munna Bhai, says that, more importantly, vote for this guy because I know his father was a great man. Okay, fair, fine, opinion, fair. My issue was the third part of what he said. He said that मुझे गांधी बापू दिख रहे. I was shook, honestly. With the amount of respect I had for the character Munna Bhai, not only because I hail from Mumbai, but was a very relatable character. Yeah, even I'm a goon. I don't look like it, but yeah, I'm an ideological goon. Because let me tell you, I was disappointed, right? When they made a movie called Lage Raho Munna Bhai, right? Which was a very, very different connotation of, or usual, from the usual Bollywood that was being made back then. I mean, of course, from the one of Aarti Lagans and so on and so forth. When we look at Bollywood, right, and how it works, is that it capitalizes on ideas and ideologies, just like politicians. So, again, of course, I would be extremely disappointed if Rajkumar Hirani came up and said whatever he said, but thank God it was Sanjay Dutt, because we know Sanjay Dutt at times is not going to have his head in the right places. Not because I don't like the guy. I mean, the guy is interesting, but he's interesting. That's about it. So yeah, I was wrong, which is why I couldn't perform for y'all, because my entire aspect, the third aspect of the play, was diminished by one YouTube video. But let me tell you what makes me want to be proud of being a Gandhian today, right? Taking away from the set piece of performance, I want to tell you for a fact that I was a kid back in the 4th grade, and I came across this book called My Experiments with Truth, and I was like, yeah, let's sound intellectual. So I picked it up, read one page, shut it. I'd be brutally honest, I got bored. Only when I was 14, I had this, misconception that you could be a rebel if you worked for radical right-wing groups. You know what I mean by these groups, right? Yeah, those disgusting outfits that could become ISIS. Yeah, so I went and worked personally with a group called Bajrang Dal, right? And I'd be brutally honest, I was very excited before I walked in there. I was genuinely excited. I was like, yes, I'm gonna be a rebel for a cause, like Sir said. But when I walked in, I just saw ill people. People who were ill. People who wanted to politicize the want to belong to a particular religion. Basically disgusting people. Which is when I went back and picked up My Experiments with Truth. And I read through it. And I was ever humbled. Ever humbled by the fact that we have the right reasons for being a rebel in front of us. To take inspiration or to even criticize Gandhi. But we ignore it. Because of how hyped it is. Right? You must have often heard your parents complain that, oh, you listen to your friends more than you listen to us. Which is because when you're with your friends, at least I assume when you were with your friends, you're at an equal footing, at least socially. At least socially. I mean, I don't have good friends. I don't know about y'all. But being brutally honest, you take things more seriously in that aspect. And I do not discourage or encourage anybody to, pick up My Experiments with Truth and read about Gandhi. Because how much ever, hello, hi, what's up? Please have a seat. What I tell you to do about, is not to read the book, is to read the person. Read the person's contributions. Even if it's reading a Wikipedia article, go ahead. You learned something new, right? Mahatma Gandhi always tried to advocate for the idea of wanting to be more aware. Yeah, y'all are confused why I said Mahatma Gandhi. To me, he is a Mahatma. Yeah, call me a hypocrite. I really think he's a great man. But I know he's not the greatest man on planet Earth, and he's not like the ideal person. I'm sure nobody is. Which is what's beautiful, right? What humanizes the entire equation is critique. Is dissent. So when you say that Gandhi harassed women, which is a common thing that people say, now I don't know how much truth there is, how much false there is in that aspect. But all I can tell you is the very fact that you can stand and critique the idea of somebody is so empowering, because try doing this to Narendra Modi. I dare you. I dare you to stand up and tell the world, in fact, that Narendra Modi is a sexual predator. Although he isn't, at least not from my knowledge or not from what's brought up. Try. You're gonna die. I'm serious. Because the issue is, when we talk about the relevance in today's politics, people do not understand that politics is not a religion. Right? I get disgusted when people say, oh, like cricket, even politics is a religion. Go to UP. They worship their politicians. Disgusting. Why would you want to worship someone you want them to represent? Right? What do you think happens in heaven? Parliamentary debates? No. Of course not. More importantly, my issue, again, coming back to Narendra Modi's version or interpretation of the Gandhian ideology, is that there are a set of bhakts, right, of these radical saffronites, who want to just want to murder everybody with an opinion. But again, here comes the biggest aspect of Gandhian notion, is that Narendra Modi will not do it, right? His followers will. And here, I mean, since you all are students of law, I don't think you can hold Narendra Modi accountable for any of the hate crimes, can you? No, you can't. No, you can't, because even if you do, the judge, they've done it in the past. It's been done. I mean, look it up. Look it up. Justice Lohia. Yeah. Talk about democracy. Talk about freedom. Right? Talk about the idea of being equal in a democracy, having your freedom, having your rights, not realizing it's just something said for convenience, which is what our brand of politics has been reduced to. I mean, with all due respect to, everybody who spoke, but Professor Amin came out and, criticized the Indian political system. I don't know about y'all, but I felt really weird. I mean, this is the interpretation we're giving to observers. Come on, we're better than this, aren't we? Yeah? Which is what it is. But again, I respect him. I respect him for having called us out. He's not afraid of any pressure that it may bring, which is precisely what Gandhi said. Criticize. Don't be afraid. If you have an opinion, put it out. Own up to it. Own up to your opinion. Because today, with you foregoing your opinion, you're calling for another totalitarian regime, right? On the basis of you foregoing your opinion, your want to make a difference is deteriorating. I mean, I'd just like to conclude by saying that very interestingly, when I told my mother about today's event and that I had been called to speak on Gandhi, she was obviously very happy that okay, that's great, good for you. I was really excited. I must not lie. I was really excited. But then she told me, are you going to advocate for Gandhi or go against Gandhi, or why? I fail to understand, why do we have to pick a side? Can't we even be supporting Gandhi and criticizing the ideology? Why can't we? There's not 100% everything that I agree with Gandhi, and I call myself a Gandhian. Of course, I propagate non-violence because I look this way. I mean, if I had six packs and whatever, muscles and, or if I looked like with other panelists here, other student panelists, I mean, I would definitely not believe in non-violence because I don't bash everybody up, which is flawed. Which is where it's flawed. Because we don't understand that humans do everything at a convenience. And there's, sorry for me being economic, there's an opportunity cost. There's a cost at which your actions may be weighed against the consequences of the same. So yeah, I mean, I don't intend on changing the world with this speech. But all I would say is for everybody, even if you criticize Gandhi, even if you advocate Gandhi, if you worship Gandhi, which I would not advise, be true. Because no matter how cliche this sounds, the more true you are to yourself is how much better or how much more truer will life be to you. Thank you.
Alright, so with that we conclude our first part of this session. We conclude our panel discussion. I hope you have taken away enough food for thought. Honestly, I really would have liked to see more women in the audience. They have increased a little bit, but when we started off, there was literally 2 people in the audience who were female. One of them was me. So I would really much rather that more girls join Students for Peace if this is a constitution of Students for Peace, and more women get engaged in the way political thought functions, because as Pradyumna concluded, there is clearly not just this right that we have to participate in politics, but also the duty to do so in order to literally change the tyranny that we live under, irrespective of the larger political connotations. So we ought to participate more and come out more. Right, so on that note, let's end this panel discussion. I'm very grateful for everybody who came out and despite the venue change ended up here at the end of it.